Excellent. And Pauline is a designer, artist, and poet based in East Hampton. Um, Her clothing line design won a Coty Award, and her Flatiron showroom gallery was a New York design world destination for many years. Pauline's furniture and art grace homes around the world. The creative focus and inspiration in all of our work is how we create our lives and world from the inside out. Her poetry reflects that lifelong inquiry. Pauline now spends her time creating, writing, speaking, and running SanePlanet, a foundation she began to lend a helping hand to Mother Earth. So welcome, Pauline, and take it away.
Thank you. Okay, well, good evening and welcome in this very unusual year. For several months, the noise of the world has quieted, and certainly in East Hampton, we've lived in this kind of forced reflection. And these extreme times of crisis are transformative. And we've leaned into ourselves in new ways, and many of us have found new self-knowledge, even coming upon a new persona within ourselves that we don't yet know. And after these months of lockdown, we're all feeling ready to start in again. There's this urgency, I think everybody's wanting to get back into life again. We want to move forward with new ideas and understanding of our own lives that this time of both retreat and tragedy have triggered in so many of us. So it's not until we give voice and language what we're seeing that we can fully understand it for ourselves. And this is a time when many of us are finding a new voice. And these poems are from a new book that I began writing during this lockdown, and it's called Find Your Voice. And this next poem is the seminal poem of the book. It begins with a quote from Hemingway. All you have to do is write one true sentence. Find your voice. First, you find your voice. Land on it. Learn how to listen profoundly to yourself. This is your beginning move. Unleash the gift located at your core, the knowledge you always carried there within you. Honor its origin as your own. Speak up. Sing out loud. Write your story on blank pages and scatter them before the world. Face down your shaming shadow. Stand up to your fear stalker. Scale your wall of vulnerability and stand tall in the market square. Go public. Get soul naked. Flaunt your spark of genius. Shout it on the airwaves and strut it in the streets. Magnificent and humble. Say before the world, here, this is who I am, my gift to you. That is to find your voice. So we need to learn how to listen profoundly to ourselves and go within, find that knowledge, that what is there at our core, the gift that we want to bring forth. To do that is kind of daunting for most of us, actually. And it takes a certain kind of audacity to really unleash our authentic voice and bring it forth into the world. And even to dare to do that is a kind of audacity. So this next poem is called Conscious Audacity, because this is a kind of audacity that we have to keep recreating, and we have to do it in a conscious way. It begins with a quote from Benjamin Disraeli: "Success is the child of audacity." Audacity is the watchful eye that dares to see an opening and leaps to make the win, trades a foothold on the precipice to soar, ready to be recognized and heard. In the courage to declare itself, Audacity presumes what it says matters, conscious that what counts for anyone is amplified in other souls and hearts. Nature owns audacity as its imperative, speed in osprey, stillness in the watching heron, cougar rippling as she lights upon her prey, rooting acorns, aiming for the sky. As high and wide as vision dares to go, audacity displays its gifts, believing that a single reverie has the power to move a world. Audacity is conscious, measured, passion swelling out to meet its purpose. A human life created in velocity and partnership with bliss. So we need to risk, we need to jump off that place of safety, because the truth is we're always on the precipice, and make ourselves recognized and heard. The truth is that what we say does matter. And in a world of 8 billion, almost 8 billion people, everything that anyone has to say is going to matter to a goodly number. So our vision is really present in our audacity, conscious, measured, passion swelling out to meet its purpose. A human life created in velocity and partnership with bliss. And it's a very vulnerable place to stand. It is really standing up to the world in a way that brings us right in touch, face to face with our vulnerability. And we become vulnerable every time that we aim for something new, that we stretch for some new idea, some new desire, something new that's important to us. And so vulnerability is something that, as we move through life, is always new. We're always becoming vulnerable in a new way. So this poem is called Becoming Vulnerable. And it begins with a quote by Theodore Roethke. Love is not love until love's vulnerable. But I would actually go further than that to say, life is not life until life's vulnerable. Becoming vulnerable was no weakness. It was the doorway to compassion, the gift of inner seeing where I discovered everything I treasure most. Dropping down inside the empty space within, just below the breath, a new courageous stranger awaits me at the heart of who I will become. Here, I reclaim the part of me that is my core, the one that takes no prisoners, the inner child that runs away from home, leaves what looks like perfect to find what is truly real. The shelter of false choices, compromises, fitting into alien identity becomes a prison where we lock the door from inside upon ourselves. My new invitation to the world, with all its fierce insistence on management, control, and fitting in, is this: take me for exactly who I am, the best I have to give. That last stanza, take me for exactly who I am, the best I have to give. You know, our education system hasn't changed since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And we've been trained from very young to believe that it's what we do and what we produce that, you know, that's where our value lies. And actually, this poem is saying that our value lies in who we are. That is the value that every one of us has to bring to the world. And this is, I believe, one of the new ideas that are going to come out of this time of lockdown, this time of really plague before Renaissance, similar to the Middle Ages. So one of the big things that that we are afraid of is failure, in everything and anything. And the thing about that is that we think of failure as an end or as a series of endings. We have a totally incorrect idea of what failure is. And actually, success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. That's from Winston Churchill. So this poem is called Winning Failure. Failure, petri dish of victory. Mastery takes seed in failure's roots, the growth where artistry accrues, transcendent in its reach for virtuosity. Wisdom awaits in disappointment, candied trails of false starts, feats of grace, tour de force of genius. All of this awakens out of failure. So if you cringe at imperfection, clutch at flow, and fears fester, improvise like Miles, his jazz man's mantra, every note's a test. Quixotic vagaries of broken code, virtual vexations, chaotic workarounds, the answers wait in quantum emptiness. All is process, change, and flux. There is never culmination. The state of being is eternally becoming, an endless road to something else, and a work in progress never can go wrong. So all of this is leading maybe to some sense of purpose, some new sense of purpose. And the idea that I've lived with for a large part of my life since my early teens is that we're self-made, that the self is made. And this is a quote from Barbara Meyerhoff, the self is made, not given. So our purpose is actually self-created as we are ourselves. Purpose. In the fired infinity of your last out-breath, as night draws down, will you celebrate with awe and reverie the purpose that you made your own? That inner knowing, sudden shock of wonder when you first lit upon your genius. Did you wrap that bounty as your gift to share it with a wanting world? Did you savor every drop of joy you drank from work that you were made for? Your purpose echoing the call of passion and riding through the pain. Let your last memory return you to the love that fired your most audacious lucid dream, heroic journey of a human life. Choose now as afternoon draws in. For the sake of what? Fulfillment? Futility? The choice is ours. So now become the fortune and the feast your future self will savor in that long finality. Those fugitive moments as you leave the world, all you granted or denied will manifest, mirrored in the love you gave, returned to you as destiny. So this last poem is actually, it's from a completely different time. And it's around the time that I just began to have all these ideas about how we create ourselves and how we grow and what we're given to believe about who we are and where we belong and where we should be going is really for us to decide. And around the age of 12, I went to grammar school, which was a short bus drive from Liverpool, from the center of Liverpool, the center of the town in Liverpool, which is where the Cavern was. And the Beatles used to do lunchtime sessions at the Cavern. And I and a bunch of friends used to sneak out of school and hop the bus to town to watch the Beatles in the Cavern at lunchtime. So this poem is called Love from Liverpool. We loved you, Paul McCartney, lads like you who carried joy through poverty, shining like a totem, deep and tender working man who never let a trick go by and knew their measure. Schoolgirls in white socks, we sneaked out of Notre Dame each day at 12 o'clock, passing Sister Bernard at the gate, hopped a bus to town, to Mersey Beat, lunchtime sessions at the Cavern, dark with innocence. There we found an impudence they never sold in Marks and Sparks, confidence no royalty could imbue, effrontery that crossed beyond the loft, effrontery that crossed beyond the toffs and classes. Landing on our moment, love me do, we stole the future. They warned us life is hard. Never once did we believe a word of it. We raised a glass, gave gratitude. Pride could take a pass, we stood it down with attitude. Dared to dream, dared to ask. Believe the music, that's the blast. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pauline. Excellent. So moving along to our next reader tonight, we have Carole Stone. And before I introduce Carole, I just have to make a slight little change. Perfect. Okay, so Carole Stone is a distinguished professor of English and creative writing emerita, Montclair State University. Carole's poetry collections include Kurt, The Shadow, All We Have Is Our Voice, both published by Madres Press, and American Rhapsody, published by Cavankerry Press, and Traveling with the Dead, which was published by Backwaters Press. Recent journal publications include Crosswinds and Pen and Brush. Her work has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, and she received 3 fellowships from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, and she divides her time between Springs and East Hampton and Verona, New Jersey. So without further ado, take it away, Carole.
Thank you. Okay. Well, after that profound reading by Pauline, I just don't know how I'm going to follow that because my poems tend to be much more down to earth. But the thing that I love about poetry and poets the most is the difference in our voices. It's just, you know, wonderful to think about the way the mind works, and of all our minds, work differently. So my mind at the moment is on travel. And here we are in a time when we cannot travel. So I'm going to take you on a very mini tour with poems from places that I have visited. And I'm going to start out with the most mundane of places, which is New Jersey. Now, I know a lot of people make jokes about New Jersey, but I was born there and I live here, and so what can I say? So I will start with a poem that is in fact called Oh, New Jersey. Oh, New Jersey, I eat your diner cuisine, the Koyak as a girl, where I had my first bagel, the TikTok on Route 3, where I stopped for baklava, the Verona diner, refurbished and serving crepes. Sundays, when Uncle Sid drove to the China Clipper over the Pulaski, my brother, cousin, and I in the back seat, Aunt Elsie's Pall Malls mingled with Esso's oil tank fumes. I'm like a peasant who never left her birthplace. The dead tell me it's too late to hang out with them in the basement where they sleep. With your insomnia, they say, you'll keep us up. Oh, New Jersey, where Sinatra's voice is sacred as mass, tell me you will let me go. I will cross your border, suitcase packed with grief, your chemical skyline a tear in my eye. My New Jersey people loved all the diners. This is called Elegy to Newark. 5 in a row department stores, Bambergers, Kresge's, Hanes, Klein's, Orbach's. Shopping with Aunt Elsie on Bergen Street, passing the women with peroxide blonde hair. One stops and says, oh, so like your mother, poor dead Marge. 744, a huge building on Broad, Italian North Newark, Jewish Wekoyak, Portuguese Ironbound, Blacks in the Central Ward. On roller skate to the Osborne Tourist Library, finding the poems of Langston Hughes. I'm tired of waiting, aren't you, for the world to be good and kind? Branch Brook Park with cherry blossoms, more spectacular than DC's, taking the 14 bus downtown. My brother and I catching poison ivy in the empty lot that is no more, soaking in a chamomile bath, staying silent in homeroom when we had to recite the Lord's Prayer, moving to a new neighborhood in another city where the light shines off the bay, traveling far from the dead to the living, the slice of history behind me, the Newark I left, the child who wanted to be happy. So, moving from New Jersey onward, I think it's appropriate to read some poems that take place in East Hampton. One form I'm extremely fond of is the ode. I find it very easy to write because, odes are filled with euphoria and it just kind of pours out. So this is Ode to Jellyfish. Surf swirls over these tiny creatures lying in clusters on 2 Mile Hollow Beach, small balls of survival here before dinosaurs roamed the earth. Each August they come from the ocean's depths. They slide their tentacles over each other to speak. Waiters step around them. Kids bury them in sand. Mothers looking on as if to say, it's only a phase. Without spines or bones, they cling to each other. As a girl, I collected them in pails of water. I thought I could keep them from dying. Another familiar place to you all, one of the most beautiful places in East Hampton, I think, Louse Point, Lines written at Louse Point. The quote from William Wordsworth, "Again, I hear these waters." This June afternoon, cool and clear, home between school end and summer camp, kids run and shout along the pebbled bay. Someone's small dog nuzzles me. On the bay path, beach plums redden, gust of wind, sliver of nostalgia, salt smell of time past, Jersey shore, circled beach chairs, aunts and uncles gossiping, me buried by my brother up to my neck in sand. Each summer, I migrate to this point, ready to cry aloud the brevity of a lifespan. I watch the green islands ringed in brown rise from the bay's bottom, paddle out to them, dipping oars deep in water. The canoe scrapes shallow shoals towards beached fish, white bellies up. One stroke, then another, to reach land. Along the shoreline, a flock of terns skitter as they rise skyward. Sun flickers on and off like a faulty showerhead. My past wears away until nothing is left, like an exhausted bird, nearly finished with the wind and the wild grasses. Okay, so we've been to East Hampton and we've been to New Jersey, and now we're going to Mexico. And as I told you, I'm very fond of the ode form. So actually, I couldn't decide whether to title this poem Ode to My East, which of course in Spanish means corn, or Ode to Corn. And that's always an interesting question when you're writing about another country, you know? Do you want to just like be pretentious and use the language of the other country or whatever? So anyhow, at the moment, it's Ode to My East. Under green husks, you shine like the gold the conquistadors stole. Like flowers at dawn, you cast your scent, watch over the poor, patron saint against hunger. Zapotec women grind your kernels between stones, make you into tortillas to heal the wounds of conquest. I shook your ears, grill you, burnt around your edges. Sometimes I plunge you into water, boil you until your teeth are tender. I prick you with a fork, lift you from the pot, butter you, salt you, bite. And the corn has been particularly good this year. One of my heroines, among others, is Frida Kahlo. And you know, I've written a lot of poems, sometimes spoken in the other person's voice, as my Josephine Hopper poems have. So I'm calling this poem Saint Frida. And I think it speaks for itself about how popular a figure she has become, possibly too popular. Your self-portrait with parrots adorns shopping bags. Camellias at your throat, you stare from postcards, your hair entangled in a headdress of leaves. From a 10-peso note, you and Diego smile. In a ruffled wedding dress, monkeys on your shoulders, your red mouth cries out, your eyes weep. Poor women pray to you for health, for money, for a good man. You've become a patron saint, like the Virgin of Guadalupe. On restaurants' ladies' room doors, your eyebrows grow thicker each year. So I don't know what you want to say about the fact that, in fact, in Mexico, she does adorn ladies' room doors. She's just like everywhere, including on shopping bags. Iguana on the bus. On the public bus to the town center, A man in an Armani tee, long hair and beard, holds a 5-foot iguana on his lap. A maid in her black apron uniform on her way home from work leans over to pet its back. The black and gray iguana stiffens, bobs its head. The man slips a mango slice into its mouth, strokes the wrinkled body, speaks to the iguana as if it were his elderly parent. Its eyes are shut, its mouth silent, its jowls quiver. What I'm always tempted to say about that poem is when I was teaching, and my students would always say, "This really happened, this really happened." So what I would like to say is, "This really happened." And it was the most amazing experience seeing that iguana on the bus. And one more poem about Mexico, Far From Home. On Cinco de Mayo, families tumble in surf. Chaises dot hotel beaches like hospital beds. Today, my son-in-law was carried to the funeral home. What is left? His wife, 2 daughters, college books, Red Sox cap. Someday, all the fathers will be names never spoken. Angry mothers shout their desaparecidos must be accounted for. Men, women, children walk to the border. Stars scrape across the sky. The full moon lets loose its perfect light. We are always the child, far from home. And so before I conclude, I really feel the necessity to get another country in. So I'm going to read one poem about Ireland. Rivers. The Liffey runs through Dublin into the sea, not like New Jersey's Shrewsbury. My family history buried in silt. A girl who sulked at her aunt and uncle's house, her people ordinary as soda water. All my childhood, no exit, except on rivers in picture books, the Rhine, the Danube, the Seine. In Dublin, a streaked sky spills like a kicked paint bucket. My landlady fills a hot water bottle to slide between sheets, all buried beneath. Night love, she calls, old as my mother would have been. I borrow another people's history, sham a family, to make the Liffey mine. And I think I'd like to read one more poem, which is going to take place in my house in New Jersey and ends on, I think, a happy note. This happiness. To be in the kitchen, darkness falling at 4:46 p.m., backyard hill fading into the landscape, deer no longer climbing down, these apparitions of nature haunting the suburbs. On WQXR, Haydn, and me dancing little steps, thinking, lucky, oh lucky, as I count my years on my fingers. My hair's gray. When I look in the mirror, I see blonde. I haven't left my house for days, waiting for the sun like a refilled prescription. Who said old age ain't for sissies? My brother Jerry, an aficionado of 40s movies, says it was Betty Davis. And yet, this happiness in my kitchen, slicing an acorn squash, squeezing lemon on the flounder, just me, myself, and I. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Carole. Moving on to our next speaker, we have Roslyn Brenner. And okay. And just a bio for Rosalind. Rosalind Brenner graduated from Sarah Lawrence with Masters of Fine Arts 2009, is a poet, glass artist, and painter. Her words and images combine imagination and memory, and she's been called by reviewers an energy painter. Her poetry books are All That's Left, Art House Press, 2010, which combines her art and poetry, a chapbook titled Omega's Garden by Finish Line Press in 2011, and her latest book, Every Glittering Chimera, published by Blue Light Press this year in 2020. Her poetry is in many magazines and journals, and Roslyn owns East Hampton Art House Bed and Breakfast in East Hampton, New York. She moved to Eastern Long Island from New York City because she loves to swim and the scent of fresh air. And without further ado, we're going to hear a few selections from Roslyn.
Am I on? Thank you. You can hear me?
Perfectly.
Strange times we're living in, doing a reading on Zoom, first time ever. A little bit strange because audience feedback and the looks of audience are kind of helpful and joyful when you're reading, but I'll do my best. So thanks to Steve and to East Hampton Library and to my lovely poet friends who came before me. And I'm going to continue a little bit with East Hampton because some people know it as, in fact, when we first moved here and I first introduced my husband to it, he said, oh, all the movie stars, East Hampton, had never been here. And it's really one of the most beautiful places on earth as far as I'm concerned. And also, it's not only East Hampton, but that's where I live in the Springs, but this area, this beautiful Long Island. And I do love to swim, and a couple of these poems about swimming and beaches. So I'll stay in East Hampton for the first couple of poems. Some of the other ones I'll explain as I go. Okay. At Main Beach. Last night, my New York City friends looked up into the black and brilliant starlit sky above the stretch of darkened beach, an empty, endless corridor in silent winter. They craned their necks, gazed at the living planetarium above. The dipper seemed to pour for them alone a molten bowl of silver flame. Cassiopeia zigzagged in a white-hot blaze. Betelgeuse shone grand and golden in Orion's belt. I sat and shivered on a bench, watched my visitors take off their socks and boots and brave the ice-slicked sand, twirl each other in circles, wild and free, in puffy jackets, woolly hats, and gloves. Barefoot and spilling tears from cold and laughter, they danced together on the soft and chilly ground, delighting in the sight the dome revealed, away from buildings that obliterate the heavens. The vault above so brilliant and close, they waved their arms and jumped so high, it looked to me as if, despite their heavy clothes, they might take off and fly. So going to another season, and more swimming and more beach, although this is the pool. 6 a.m. swim. Swim joy into your lungs, each breath in harmony with dawn, though clouds above threaten and the wind is chilly damp. What matter if it rains? You're swimming, you're wet anyway. The shower begins. Drips flow fast. A steady stream anoints you. You remove your goggles, raise your head just above the blue water, glide in time and rhythm with your inner fish. Your Pisces sign is wild with happiness. You watch raindrops slide into the water like oily baby tears, tiny petals of light, translucent filament that bubbles on the surface, then spreads. Another, then another expands and bursts, a harmony of splashes everywhere. Ripples merge the way tossed Pebbles unfurl a concentric circle dance on a quiet lake. They join like synchronized swimmers in a Busby Berkeley movie. And you are Esther Williams, star of Watery Dreams, your hair and face soaked. The splatter on your cheeks feels like kisses. On the table, your towel is getting drenched and your watch is wet. You climb out of the pool, stand in the shelter of the covered deck. Still breathing hard, you catch in every happy breath the fresh bouquet of pristine morning rain. And the air does smell delicious here, no matter what season and no matter what you're doing, really. Oops, just lost my entire place, but I'll get it back. But now that we've been kind of confined, and I say we're confined in a beautiful bubble, we're such fortunate ones. We are the lucky ones. So many people are suffering, and there's so much trouble in the world these days. But I'm still writing about the East End. So a few of these are written during this time. I wrote a lot of them during this time. East End Spring 2020. A cloud of rolling fog half covers Gardiner's Island. Salty spring air fills us with a tangy shiver, like tartness in the sweet melt of dark chocolate on the tongue. Along the beachfront, Leyland cypress trees are silent. The morning world is sleeping. Our island's April winds have vanished. Our front yard of emerald ferns unfurls dime-size spiral heads. Burlap-wrapped bushes, cocoon creatures will soon be free. The scrubby shoreline forest chatters. Chickadees sing, "Dee, chickadee, new season." Woodpeckers ratchet repetitive cacophony. The chorus of mating spring peepers hidden in the wetlands contributes piercing screeches to the ensemble's swelling sound. Though the virus shadows like a hungry ghost, nature's noisy party is an invitation. Small wonders catch us by surprise. Our broken lives, nights wishing for escape, have brought us here at last, our fears unmasked, to taste renewal. A cardinal flashes across the road. We stop to see him land. An influencer indeed. He draws us in, chooses a cherry branch thick with blooms. Perfect, we think. Red bird, pink tree. So watching TV during this time, I wrote this. Contagion. He lost, sorry. I don't know if you heard that, but I don't know how to turn it off, so, okay. Contagion. He lost his job. In the video, a young woman says she has to rebuild herself, her work in clothing sales, her life. Their rent is due. Death in the arms of bigotry, death by the cruelty of leaders, death by disease. 120,000, now 150,000, counting in the America that's great again. The traffic jam inside my head whispers suggestions, shouts instructions. Stop watching. Paint your own paintings. Get back to work. The voices tell me, write your poems, run a bath, or run away. Do something. What will you do? Bite your finger until it bleeds. You hear the shouts. You read the signs. Take off your velvet shoes. Walk in someone else's boots. March barefoot through the rubble. So we lost Mike, my husband's mom, not to COVID, but to a long deterioration after a fall, but it was during, well, it was May 15th. So it was while we were locked down. Coda for Mom, May 2020. It wasn't her colors that disappeared. she could still belt out at our holiday table, "Ain't she sweet?" Short black slacks she called high waters, red dress, necklace, bangle earrings, even in the simple hours we'd visit to say hello, sit with her. Her specialty, lasagna, the scent of home, gravy dipped in semolina bread, and music. After her fall, her pocked white skin pallid as sidewalk chalk after rain, in pain, she reached for us, accepted our fussing with her hair, her meals, her quilt, until, robust mom, reduced to 70 pounds of bone, we knew her final time was near. And when it came, song slipped from her skin. At the 2-hour wake, lace blouse stuffed as if to give her weight, costume jewelry, nail polish chosen by the parlor manicurist, darker than her usual, face rouged, bright red lipstick, coiffed perfectly, as if dressed, boxed, and ready for a showcased window. Fraught comfort for the few who dared to kneel, to pray, to say goodbye in these sad, infected days when no funeral is allowed and goodbyes are screened and lonely. So on a happier note, I've got a few happy ones here, so I'm going to continue. Rescue. Come down, hurry. Mike is running, soaked and cold. In his hand, a turtle, wet and still, little more than an inch around. He spied it floating on its back and fished it, baby, newly hatched and nearly drowned, from the bottom of the pond. We rub its tiny shell. We stroke the legs. The turtle moves, and we are grateful, vow to build him a terrarium or place him in the woods. We focus on a life we want to save that's not our own. Brief passage. A single cormorant, feathers spread, lazes on dark ripples. A blaze of red and aqua sunlight bolts through clouds on the horizon. Halyards ring out evening in the marina as sailboats swave in wave break at the jetty. Geese fly the currents above, their shapely V dappling the light of moonrise. I hear myself ask, no one listening, how many others have passed time seated on this bench, admiring the white windmill across the water, blades blinking in the windy fade of dusk. When my wings have flown me through the portal that unlocks death's hidden prize, will I become the breath of wind? Will I be sister to that seagull perched on the pier that bolts the dock to ground below? Will I mingle with rainbow rays to stir a lonely woman's imagination as sun sets on this bench, this bay, this beach, thinking how fast light goes dark as daylight dims? This cove, so quiet on peaceful days, turbulent when weather whips the shore, ebbs and flows in rhythm with the moon, will not remember I spent this solitary moment holding close its aching beauty. Just looking at my time, I think I'm still okay. This was written a while ago. I have gone on a couple of silent retreats and learned a great deal about myself and about the thoughts that happen when we are not speaking, writing, working, painting, doing. This was a concert at the ashram. The white-bearded flautist seems enchanted, eyes closed, cross-legged, deep in meditation, flowing red and orange robes. His soft, willowy sound strikes silver notes above rupa drums and the resonant drone and twang of the sitar. A tone poem shivers inside me. We soar into a chant, supplicants for amity and breath, stirred by musical magicians. Our humming rises as the players increase the tempo, heating up the room, quickening heartbeats. A man in a long white tunic, bangle bracelets on each arm, rises as if lifted by music's power, twirling, ecstatic, a divine trance dance. Here to overcome the many shapes of sorrow, we have trekked the hills to hear a guru's wisdom. In the comfort of sacred sound, we are no longer exiled from each other through planetary plague, though planetary plague threatens the fragility of this place. Orchids in the arboretum smile at you. You know that death and life are a continuum. You ohm, pray for Earth's survival. I will keep going for a little while, a couple of more poems, and then it'll be 7 o'clock. So I'm a painter, an artist, visual artist, as well as a poet. I like to think of myself that way. And I read an interesting article in the New York Times, excuse me, maybe about a year ago. And it was about this hieroglyph, basically. I wish my computer would stop ringing, but I can't, I'm not tech savvy, so there it goes. So there were 9 red lines crisscrossed on this wall in this cave. And the archaeologists named it L13. So this is my poem about the artist and about being an artist. L13, found in Blombos Cave, Cape Town, South Africa. 9 red lines on a stone flake, 2 thumbnails wide and long, red ochre lines deliberately drawn 100,000 years ago. Symbol and message, say the archaeologists. A drawing in deep ochre hues with handcrafted crayon, color scooped from clay-rich earth. We'll never know the intention of the ancient Homo sapien artist. Was there purpose in the crisscross pattern, or was it doodling? Perhaps he thought to make himself immortal with an abstract picture of the way he felt that day. Decided he must make his mark before he slaughtered dinner. Did he feel linear in the sameness of his daily life? Was he cross? Was it fear he sketched of quick annihilation? He may have known that what he saw and drew was his own dream, that he himself was an interlude and unimportant. So he scrawled a painting on the flat rock wall, something that would remain, intersecting lines, form without a definition, without a name, bewildering to cave mates who didn't understand. No accolades withheld or granted then. There was no word for greatness. He couldn't know his little sketch would not be seen again until a stumble on a dig 1,000 centuries later. The scrap reveals his presence there, his fleeting life, his art, the contents perhaps of his feelings, released by means of handmade paint in that cryptic, prehistoric moment. Let's see if I want to, I only have a little bit more time, so I want to cut it short a little bit. Let's see what I can do. So I live about a mile from Jackson Pollock's house where he lived, and Springs Fireplace Road where he died. And if you haven't been and you live here, to his wonderful, incredible museum where there are paints still on the floor, where he wrote out his canvas and painted, and his brushes are right there. It's a pretty amazing experience. Jackson Pollock, you live and die in Springs. Mangle your car against a tree. The gouged tree trunk remains a monument to your impact. On canvas, you are pinned to history, in ribbons, swirls, spills, and bubbles. Your world, the colors of your passage, ingrained on your studio floor. Art and history hold you in sweet-smelling springs, our scrubby foliage, oaks and cedars, beach plums, bays, the way summer arrives suddenly, the gardens erupt into life. Our year-round sunsets, gold and orange light. You described all of it in layers of your imagination, painted, poured, and flung onto canvas that defined your life. You are in the fog that settles like an osprey nesting its chicks. Greeting morning, your infant birds fly from your brushes, your trowels, your sticks, emerge as newborns, new flight pattern in every dive, every soar, every stroke. And I will try one more. I'll finish with, I was going to read from my book. I'll show you my book. Every Glittering Chimera by Rosalind Brenner from Blue Light Press. It's got some interesting work in pretty feminist poems. But I'll finish with this one. Nutritional advice. Taste this poem. Eat its skin, suck on the pulp. Delectable. Words drool down your chin. Lick them. Chew and swallow, digest, use the nutrients, let them stay with you. Discard what you don't need. Compost with grinds and shells. Ants will be nourished too. Peonies will grow from the loam. Thank you. Yay!
Thanks to all our poets. A round of applause for everyone. And let me just... Excellent.